If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Randy Nance, combat wounded Green Beret. Below him, Khalid Muhammad from Command 11. He's our head of intelligence now because 007 beside him. So Khalid's 008, just so you all know. Jeff MD, 26-year CIA operative. He's 007. He's the real 007. I don't care if you believe me or not. Trust me. Anyway, tonight we're going to be discussing terrorist groups, and their usage of decentralized communications, encrypted, disguised, hidden in other applications. So we're going to cover Signal, Telegram, Steam, burner phones, how the cell phones communicate using new cutting-edge apps that aren't even on the network. And we're going to dispel some myths while we're at it. But before we do that, let me get the conflicted question of the day up here, get everybody on stage. So if you're not familiar with this, conflictedthegame.com. These are card games with questions set in a post-apocalyptic scenario. And the reason they're called conflicted is because there's typically some element of morality to them. And this is a good one here tonight. So you've run out of food and your family is starving. The government will give you free food, but they require you to supply them with the names of 3 other survivalists in return. The 3 others, you could name them, but that giving them the names will result in their homes being raided and all of their supplies being confiscated by the government. What do you do? That's a good one. We'll have to think hard on this one. So hang out until the end of broadcast. We'll give you our answers. We want to see your answers in the live chat or the comment section down below. Either one is fine. I'm going to be putting up a number of things tonight, by the way, that you'll be able to go to our Substack and grab. So when you have a minute, head over to survivaldispatch.news. That's our Substack. Sign up for a free account. You'll get our daily SITREPs Saturday watch guide amongst other stuff. And just a quick reminder that if you happen to get some of the carnival meat, there's this myth out there that you would buy this and stack it up in case the shit hits the fan. I challenge anybody to do that without eating it all, because every time Randy and I get some, it's gone inside of a week. And my wife's like, really? You're eating the preps? I'm like, yeah, I'm eating the preps. So anyway, Eat Meat gets you 10% discount on Carnival. So let's jump right into this. I've got one here from Khalid. And I got to tell you, Khalid, I was a little surprised when I saw this being Idi Amin's son. But there's no need to play the video. I'm just going to do the description. Then you tell us what the deal is with it. So Lumumba Amin, son of former president of Uganda, Idi Amin, recorded a video to be broadcast throughout the United States and Europe, exposing an imminent Israeli coup against the United States of America and the Trump administration. Amin stated the coup will happen from within by leveraging blackmail against current U.S. politicians by Israel. Amin said Israel does not want the Epstein list exposed. And we have said this multiple times over the years on Survival Dispatch News, where a new Congress critter goes to Washington, doesn't have a home there, stays in a nice hotel. The bad guys figure out what this person's proclivities are from a sexual perspective. And next thing you know, they're sitting at the bar in the hotel, and whatever that thing is that they want shows up. They end up in a hotel room. Everything gets recorded, unbeknownst to the new Congress critter. And then they come along and say, when this bill is tabled, you're going to vote this way. And when the person says, well, no, I'm not going to vote for that, they say, well, you might want to look at this evidence we have. We know what you did, and we'll release it if you don't vote the way we tell you to. It's an oversimplification, but that's the gist of what Israel's been doing. And there's lots of evidence that Mossad had their hooks into Epstein. Can't say it for sure, but Khalid, go ahead and take it from there as far as Yemen's son.
Epstein's been a really interesting case because Epstein has been connected to Russian intelligence, Chinese intelligence, and to Israeli intelligence. This is recent that they've started connecting it to China and Russia as well. The level of nasty things, blackmail material they've got to be able to use against politicians is unreal. They can force a vote in any way they want. Idi Amin's son's video is the second video that I've seen. Idi Amin's son says it one way. There was a video that came out early 2025 where the guy gave a prediction for what was going to happen in 2025. I saw this video maybe 3-4 days ago. When you count up what he said was going to happen so far in the first 6 months, he's been dead on right. Trump and Elon are going to break up. They're going to have a problem between them. He was right. And it shows down at the bottom. Video is 6 months old. So he didn't know it when it was happening. He said that for 3 months from April, May, and June, Trump will have major issues within his own government where he won't be able to trust people. We saw that happen as well. There are a lot of people that understand that Donald Trump is under a lot of pressure from a lot of people. Personally, I think he's got some people in the administration that should not be there because they're not giving him the right advice. They're not giving him the right guidance. And it opens him up to a lot of criticism. I mean, the number of interviews we've seen where the reporter asked the president a question and the president turned around and said, "Oh, I didn't know about that. I'll have to ask my staff." It means your staff's not briefing you on everything. The possibility of a coup is very high because as long as Trump is thinking for himself and he's not blackmailed and he's not pressured, the other countries cannot get what they want. And that's been typically how the governments have run in the U.S. Not just the U.S., but everywhere in the world.
Right. So, Jeff, do you want to add anything to those comments?
My only question is, where in the hell did Idi Amin's son get all this glorious insight from? What, Uganda? Where in the hell is he? And why would anybody in power waste their breath talking to him? He's got no power. His dad's been dead for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those kind of beware of Greeks bearing gifts kind of things.
Easy now. My heritage is Greek. Let's not get out of control here, right? Randy, do you want to add anything to that?
I was only going to say that, I've been saying pretty much since 2014, 2015, when he was running, and certainly after he got elected and all these years afterwards. The problem with Trump is, for the establishment, is he has no dirt on him. He's so squeaky clean, apparently, because if people don't understand that they've already been up and down and inside this man like 9 to 10, 12 different ways in all different directions to try to find something, just like if he was on the list, they would have found a way to release it without getting their people that they don't want to be exposed.
100%.
He has nothing that they can make. And that is what the problem is. But they've convinced half the public that, he's a dictator and all this stuff. Now, in their defense, somewhat, he does talk a lot, and sometimes he doesn't help himself in the best when he's doing that. And that's part of the problem. You know what I mean? But regardless, the fact is he's squeaky clean, folks, or they would have already put him in prison and we wouldn't even be talking about it anymore.
Absolutely. If they had dirt on Trump, they wouldn't have to make up phony charges to try him in New York and change the laws to change the misdemeanor to a felony and get rid of the statute of limitations. They wouldn't have to jump through those hoops if they had dirt on him.
100%. Yeah. What made me laugh originally when it showed up and Doherty's, made a comment, he's as ugly as his dad in reference to Idi Amin. I was thinking to myself, that guy slaughtered a ton of people. So while you guys were talking, I just had a quick look at it, and they attribute something like 300,000 people were killed by him. I mean, he's not in Mao's level or anything like that, but it's still pretty heinous.
Well, it's a small country too, but there's a great movie about him. It's called The Last King of Scotland.
Yeah.
Forrest Whitaker plays Idi Amin. And I think he either got the Academy Award or was nominated for it, but it's creepy, but it is a really, really good movie.
I second that 100%. And Dano, you're very, very generous. We appreciate the tips, by the way. All right. So tonight's topic, we're going to be discussing how terror cells communicate with each other, both at close range, far range. You may have noticed I put 4 links in the live chat already. Those 4 links, and I'll just show them really quickly here, are to some very long reports and PDFs that we don't have time to go through these entire reports. But if you're interested in this stuff and you want to see what, at a deeper level, what's going on, there's a special report here on how modern terrorists communicate. There's another one called Terror in the Dark. And these are all like multiple pages. It's a 61-page PDF. The next one is 62 pages long. So it shows how the terrorists use both encrypted and non-encrypted, and we'll touch on that in a minute. And then there's one more here on how to prevent people from being radicalized online. It's shorter. It's only 38 pages, but it's far too much for us to cover in a podcast. So what I do want to get into, and I'm going to go through a few links really quickly here, and then I'll have the panel weigh in on it. So this headline here, NSA warned of vulnerabilities in Signal app a month before a Houthi strike. And that is complete and utter BS. So when you scroll down and read this, and you can read all articles wherever you want, they were warning people over what are called phishing attacks, spelled PHISING. That's weird. That sound shouldn't be playing. Anyway, a phishing attack.
I'm sorry, Chris. That was me.
Okay,
that
I
was
thought
my leg. Yeah, that was my vacuum on the leg.
No problem. So anyway, here's where I was going with this. There was no vulnerability discovered in Signal. It was a warning to beware of phishing attacks. A phishing attack is when somebody attempts to socially engineer somebody else to get them to give up their credentials. That's all it was. Had nothing to do with Signal whatsoever. So why would they put out a warning like this? They put out a warning like this because they haven't cracked Signal, and they have no way of knowing what's going on in Signal. So therefore, they don't want you using Signal. One of our guys, Survival Dispatch, Tyler White, TJAC Survival, was an NSA comms expert up until recent years. And he will tell you straight up, they were never able to hack Signal. So you've got this false warning that, there's a security problem. There's not. Any app, somebody could, attempt to socially engineer you to give up your stuff. This page here, this is what's called a GitHub. This is where open source projects upload their code so it can be collaborated on. So for example, here's the files that get compiled for Android, iOS, desktop, etc. Let's go into one of them like this. Every last one of these files is raw source code. Let's go into G attributes here. Let's pick something off of it. This stuff here is instructional, but this is all the source code. Let's go to scripts. Here we go. Okay, that's what this stuff all looks like. So it's human readable. This is before it's compiled into a binary blob. It's under what's called the GPL, the GNU Public License, which is a viral license. So what that means is that if I take this code and I modify it and I keep it for myself, that's the end of the story. But the second I go to give it to somebody else, whether I give it away for free or I charge for it, I have to give you all of the source code changes made with it. So there's no way to possibly hide a backdoor in software that's open source that literally has tens of thousands of programmers putting their eyes on the source code. So I wanted to just dispel this right out of the gate, that the crap that you hear about Signal is not true. And the reason you hear that crap is because they're trying to get a headline that can be repeated over and over again. So people are like, oh, gee, well, you better stay away from Signal. Signal, is dangerous. Right now, Signal is probably the best choice unless you wrote the software yourself. And then Khalid has some other options that he likes to use as well. But I'm going to go in a circle here like usual. That way I can keep track of it. Randy, your comments on using encrypted applications for communications and whether they're vulnerable or not, especially Signal.
Well, I think you're right over the target. You know what I mean? You got to realize at this point, NSA is used to being able to watch every keystroke that everybody does. And all of a sudden, if something is that they can't, what are the best way to do it? Since they can't crack it? Well, put out a little propaganda. It's been broke. So I think that is the perfect plan if you didn't want people to use it, because now you can't pick up what the keystrokes on that. But that is it also, as you mentioned, it gives everybody that opportunity, right? So if you're a terrorist, you're going to be able to speak with your buddies without having to worry about it. But so is every average American every day that's just sending out whatever stupid little text they're sending to each other. It's the privacy part. But yeah, man,
again, straight from the NSA, they have not broken the encryption whatsoever. So have a look at this before I go to Khalid. CIA has developed tools which can hack not just WhatsApp, but bypass the encryption of Signal, Telegram, Weibo, et cetera, et cetera. No, they haven't. If you dig deeper into it, it flat out says we have not broken the encryption for Signal, but we have means and methods where we can trick people vis-a-vis a phishing attempt to get their credentials. And then once they have the credentials, they can modify Signal being used on more than one phone. So by default, when you install Signal, you have to install it on your phone first and foremost. If you do not have a cell phone, you can't install Signal on any other devices, whether it's a tablet, a laptop, desktop, or whatever the choice may be. You also cannot install Signal on multiple devices. But once they've got your username and password, they can then spoof things and get away with it that way. So this is straight up propaganda here, to be quite frank. And people who don't know what they don't know anything about looking at source code, and they don't understand open source. I get it 100%, but it's flat out, it's a lie. And I just wanted to get that dispelled right off the bat. So Khalid, you have a fair bit of expertise on this topic. Give us your opening thoughts.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, back in the day, Apple messaging was considered to be the most secure messaging that existed. And then San Bernardino happened. And Apple was pressured to give the government a USB that could be plugged into an iPhone, and they could crack the encryption and be able to log in, get all your data, and get whatever they wanted out of it. Secondly, on the dark web, the CIA tools were released called the Vault 7 tools. Now, the Vault 7 tools gave you a lot of access to computers, but it didn't give you access to the level that you'd be able to hack everything. The most common messaging app is WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is the most insecure app in the world. I mean, the most insecure app in the world. That's the easiest one to get into. It's the easiest one to hack. Someone sent me, I think today they sent me instructions using the old 1970s SS7 telecom system to be able to hack WhatsApp. And I was like, wow, you can go back to the 70s and hack WhatsApp.
Signaling System 7?
Yeah.
That's 100 years old, man.
Yeah.
Well, not quite, but
I'll send you the link, Jeff, because when you look at it, you go, oh my God, you can do this?
that's like
You can
30 years old. At least.
you can hack WhatsApp with this. Wow. The problem that we have is so many people don't know what they're talking about. The most secure, the hands down most secure communication apps: Signal, Threema, Session, and SimpleX. These are 4 communication apps that you don't have a telephone number for. You log in, you create your account, and then when you're sending your account information to someone else, you're sending a string of numbers, and they have to enter that string of numbers, or they have to scan a QR code. There's no telephone number. So you are completely secure when you use them. But what does the world use? Facebook Messenger, X Messenger, WhatsApp, and you're talking to us about security?
So let me just throw this out there before we get Jeff's thoughts on it. So WhatsApp is owned by Meta, the same company, of course, that owns Facebook and Instagram. Yep. So Meta were one of the very first companies, big tech companies, to cave to the Biden admin and the European Union and provide backdoors. So not only did all these apps like WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, X have backdoors, they had admin privileges given to government workers. So they would log in and say, oh shit, there's somebody who's saying, you know, that ivermectin is viable. We need to delete this. We need to ban this person. We need to shadow ban it. All of the governments had total control over the social media platforms. And that includes WhatsApp, which people have been using, thinking that they're communicating securely around the world. And that's just not the case. Jeff, your thoughts on encrypted apps?
Well, yeah, because the government, not just ours, every government is always going to seek a backdoor. That's NSA's reason to be. Intel agencies will go to these companies that are developing these things and approach them and say, hey, if we were to drop $3 million on your desk, would you put in a backdoor for us? And a lot of these little app companies, they don't make a lot of money. I mean, a lot of times they give their apps away or they sell them for $1. And if somebody plunks $3 million in cash on your desk, you might go, yeah, okay, I might do that. It's the oldest trick in the book. In fact, when I was with the agency, that was one of the things that they always said, hey, if you're running out there, you run into little tech companies and they got some new technology, see if you can sign them up. And, and some were legit. We want to get that technology for our purposes. Others they wanted to compromise it for our purposes.
Yeah, exactly, Jeff. So let me bring up the next stuff to share here. Oops. Went one button too far. Apologies for that. So the next one up here, I just queried Chat GPT so I could get everything nicely in one page here. So the question that I posed to Chat GPT, and I already knew the answer again, I just wanted all the stuff formatted nicely, was, did the French manage to backdoor Telegram by arresting the developer of that? So basically, Pavel Durov, by the way, is his name. Yeah. He's a Russian guy. He escaped Russia, ended up getting French citizenship. He was somewhere abroad. He came back to France. Macron said, hey, let's do dinner together. He goes to show up for dinner, and the French authorities handcuff him and arrest him because he hadn't been playing ball with them. He didn't give them a back end to his system. And there's some confusion over Telegram, by the way. So Telegram, the application that runs on your phone, your laptop, or whatever, 100% open source code, but it has to go through a server. And the server side, it's not peer-to-peer. It's you to a server, and then the server to the other person you're talking to, is closed source code. So as far as Pavel Durov is concerned, here he is. He gets arrested August 2024. Then all of a sudden, people are making allegations that the French basically said, either you give us a backdoor or we're going to put you in prison for many, many years. But there's no confirmation of that happening. It's just allegations on the part of people. And it's really, this is predicated on the European Union and their new digital act. I think it's called the DCA, if memory serves me right. But Pavel Durov's been interviewed a number of times since then. And he's still saying that users come first. And that may be the case. We don't have any evidence otherwise. But the fact that the software is closed source makes somebody like me automatically suspect that I get what he's doing. He doesn't want other people to be able to build Telegram servers and take away revenue from them. And that's okay. Each to their own. Myself, being a longtime open source member of the open source community, I mean, I was a crusader, for Christ's sake. I used to go on behalf of Sun Microsystems and give speeches to thousands of people on the merits of open source software versus closed proprietary software. So that server code for Telegram is the equivalent of a car with the hood welded shut. So even if you could get your hands on that car, you can't lift the hood. You can't change the breather. You can't put a set of headers on it. You can't change the spark plugs. You can't do anything whatsoever. So myself, I don't know if there's a backdoor into Telegram, but I don't trust it even before he was, charged by the French, simply based on the fact that it's closed source. I don't trust any closed source software, to be quite frank. But here's the deal. So Telegram's founder charged with being complicit in storing and distributing CSAM content, facilitating drug trafficking and facilitating organized fraud and other illegal transactions. Number 2, the French court claims that Telegram refuses to cooperate with law enforcement when they file a formal request for information or documents. Guilty as charged on that, as he should be. He's trying to protect his users. Number 3, Durov faces several charges related to Telegram's cryptographic features, as they haven't been formally declared or certified by French authorities. So in France and Europe in general, you have to show them what your code is, the encryption libraries and everything that go with it. There's your back door. You just gave them the blueprints to everything that you have. And number 4, Durov's accused of taking part in a criminal association with a view to committing crime or an offense punishable by 5 or more years of imprisonment, as well as money laundering. But here's the kicker. He's not being directly accused of doing those things. He's being accused of facilitating those things because he won't bend the knee, to these power-hungry tyrants in Europe. I'm going to go backwards this time. I'll go to you first, Jeff.
Real quick point. Is Durov in jail?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
So the French say, cooperate with us or we're going to put you in jail. He says, I'm not going to cooperate with you. But he's not in jail.
Yep.
Something ain't right here.
Yeah, and it doesn't pass the sniff test at the end of the day, right? I'll go to you, Khalid, and then up to Randy.
The big stink with Telegram, Telegram is completely secure. But the big stink with Telegram was that a lot of terrorist groups, a lot of extremist groups, a lot of financial fraud, crypto organizations were using Telegram to build apps and to swindle people out of money. And Telegram was pumping a lot of data in the terror groups. I mean, there wasn't a terror group that wasn't on Telegram. So what Telegram has done is, instead of giving you control of what they do on Telegram, they've started restricting all of these groups. The terror groups have disappeared. Now they come up with different names, and you've got to figure out who they are and where they are and how they operate and how you get in. The crypto games that used to exist on Telegram have disappeared. Telegram has now cleaned up its system so that they no longer face these problems. But Pavel did not give up any access to his system at all.
He didn't. And so this is the law, by the way, that he's being accused of breaking. So it's an EU regulation called the DSA. And so basically all online platforms have to be accountable for everything that's put through them. So think of Section 230 of our Internet Act being revoked without any revision to the language in the Internet Act of 1996, basically saying if you own a platform and somebody distributes illegal content, hateful content, then the platform themselves is guilty of that. It also requires that they increase transparency right here, how their algorithms and systems work. It has to protect users' right, clear complaint. That's not part of our conversation tonight. And then they have even stricter rules on what they call very large online platforms, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, et cetera, but this applies to everybody in Europe, and X is not complying with this right now either. And Elon's gone on record saying that he will not step foot in Europe anymore, because chances are, just like Pavel Durov was arrested, he'll probably be arrested and they wouldn't let him go. Not unless you gave him a few $1 billion or something.
Yeah.
Basically. Randy, do you want to chime in at all on the Telegram debacle?
Well, it falls along in the same theme, right? They want to certainly, just Macron's just not, the French leader. He's part of the elite global elites, right? And they want to be able to tap into any information, because that's proprietary information, right? Well, what we're talking about. They shouldn't have to supply that to them, certainly here in the United States. I don't know what French rules are, and I don't care. But the truth is, you know why that is? Because when we could take our own war of independence, we can also take what happened to us in Afghanistan and Iraq. When we won our war of independence, it's because we had freedom of movement in the countryside. So we were able to meet and secretly make plans and do whatever we need to do, and that couldn't be stopped. Same thing happened to us when we just stayed in camps, both Afghanistan and Iraq. The enemy still had the movement, freedom of movement in the countryside. But you think about that in America today, you really don't have that. We don't have that. You're not going to go make secret meetings in places that, that they're not going to use your devices. all the apps you used, all the cameras everywhere, to not uncover that. So they do not want any app that they can't break into and get information from. And that's what we're looking at right here.
Yeah, so I want to add that before Trump was even reelected or inaugurated, he flat out said that the American government, if he was the president, which he is, of course, would not cooperate with the Europeans on their Digital Security Act for basically an intellectual property concern. His concern is that all these European countries, which have many like crown corporations that are owned by those governments, would be able to access information communications between American employees of companies here that have significant intellectual property and essentially steal it, and also have undue insight into some stuff that they shouldn't have insight to. So Europe is a bunch of, I call them Eurofags, but a bunch of technocrats who think that they should control the world. They didn't get the memo that, you know, their global dominance is over and done with, and that's our job now. Anyway, like it or not, sort of thing. So moving on to the next one, here's a different angle that I think a lot of people are probably not aware of. So how the U.S. military buys location data from ordinary maps. So if you're not aware of this, there are companies who specialize in tracking your physical location everywhere that your phone goes. And then they turn around and they sell that information to third parties. And surprise, surprise, our military, as well as intelligence agencies, will buy that data. So the question is, why would they buy that data? Well, when they get location data, it specifically names the person, and it'll tell them what the app is, but not necessarily what's in the communication. So there's an app called Muslim Pro, and it's reportedly used by a number of terrorists to communicate on, thinking that they're, you know, under the radar. And when it's encrypted, they are pretty much under the radar. But when we have that information, the military and law enforcement has that, and intel agencies, they know exactly where people are going. And now they're feeding it into an AI to saying, did this person go near any other known terrorist? Did this person go near any known, you know, terrorist gatherings? Like, you know, Muslim Brotherhood's a great one, sort of thing. So this stuff applies to all of us, by the way. This is one of the reasons that burner phones are important. It's one of the reasons that terrorists now use burner phones as well, because they don't want their ID tied to location services to say, this person every night ends up at this mosque over here, and it's not at the prayer time. What's going on, sort of thing. So, Jeff, do you want to add anything to location services being sold for profit by these companies?
Yeah. You know, the concept is really easy. I mean, if I'm following, okay, I think Randy's a bad guy, and he's communicating on an app that I can't break into, but he's got other apps on his phone, and they're constantly pinging, saying, I'm here. If you need to send me thing, I'm here. And so I just, once I've identified his phone, then I can just follow him and see where he goes. And if there's other people I'm following, I follow them and say, hey, are they geographically in the same location? Or is he turning off his phone? And then I would say, okay, how many other people turned off their phones, or, you know, stuck in a Faraday bag or something at roughly the same time? Where were they when they went off the network? And then I'd find the spot right in the middle of that circle and say, well, that's probably where they are. You know, they're doing OPSEC, they're turning off their phones and going the last mile to their meetings. So there's other ways to locate people and to figure out what's going on without actually listening to what they're saying. Yeah, you won't know what they're plotting, but you can figure that out too. You can say, okay, who else's phones went off the net at the same time or roughly the same time? Okay, there are my suspects. Now let's follow them, see where they go, who do they talk to, and you just lay out a network that way. And you plug it into an object-oriented database and let it grind away, and you get a good representation of what the network looks like.
So another piece of information, and by the way, the terrorists are all aware of this stuff. We're not telling them anything they don't know. But the reason your battery is not removable from your phone, your smartphone, is because you can't actually turn it off. So you can turn the screen off and it's not consuming power, but it's still locating you. So for argument's sake, you can try this. turn your iPhone off and put it somewhere, and then go to any device and, go to iCloud.com, or just go to your Find My Devices on a MacBook, Mac Studio, whatever. It'll tell you exactly where the phone is, because the phone is still reporting. Now, if you were able to completely kill the power source by removing the battery like we used to be able to do, that wouldn't be the case. So this is another reason that the bad guys, like to use burner phones, because it's not tied to them in particular, and it's not going to, raise any, let's say, attention otherwise. But Jeff did hit on the one thing that will get rid of your phone. That's a Faraday bag.
Yeah.
You put your phone in a Faraday bag and you're gone. You are off the network. Nobody can see you. Nobody can communicate with your phone. And we've tested this at length, and it's pretty foolproof.
Well, the other thing with burner phones is they tend to be super cheap, and the batteries are removable.
Yep.
That's right. Flip phones, a lot of them.
Really old school, and you pull the batteries out.
Candy bars or flip phones, one of the two.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as far as the terrorists are concerned, the reason that our intel agencies and military buys this data is because there are 98 million users of this Muslim Pro app. And it's a combination of Muslim prayer and Quran verses and all that kind of stuff. And it's proved to be pretty successful at locating people. But again, this is like whack-a-mole, right? When we figure something out, the good guys, the white hats, figure something out, the black hats then go do things differently. And here they come up again. You can whack them down, and they pop up over there with a new SOP on doing all of this stuff. Khalid, do you want to add anything to this as far as the location data is concerned?
Yeah, I'm really worried about this location thing, because most people are worried about their phones. They forget about wearables. And we have, on the dark web, we have picked up CIA agents from their wearable data. So the little device you've got on your hand where it shows, your exercise and your blood pressure and how much you've walked, people are picking up that data.
Yeah.
And that's become very dangerous. I know. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the CIA run a memo on this and saying,
yeah, you were never allowed to use those things. You couldn't wear a Fitbit. You couldn't have a smartwatch. You couldn't have any of that. Hell, we weren't even allowed to have Facebook when I was in.
Yeah, I have seen data of people leaving a CIA office in Egypt and going to Syria, roaming around Syria and coming back to Egypt, and they tracked them the whole way.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that people don't think about, there's other sources that aren't even on you, maybe even in your car, but you can use, how many people have remote tire pressure sensors in the stems of their car, their wheels on their cars? It'll tell you if this one's got low pressure, this one's got high pressure.
Yep.
You can read that at a distance, or you can set up a stationary reader. So if you drive by, it picks up your, it knows it's your car from that valve stem.
Yep.
And so it knows you were there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's dangerous. Location data, when your intelligence agencies have it, it's fine. But when your bad guys get it, when your non-state actors get it, then it becomes very dangerous. And people need to start being really a lot more careful with what they do on these weapons of mass distraction. Because you don't even realize, like, all of our phones at Command 11, all of our phones have location data off. We don't let location data stay on. We all run off of VPNs, and mine is on a double VPN. All of these things are things that we have to keep in mind, because now people are watching. People are looking at you, where you are, what you're doing, who you're with. And if you're a good guy, it doesn't matter. Even if you're doing nothing wrong, they're still tracking you.
Yeah, 100%. And
anything with electrons is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Just think of it that way.
Well, anything and everything that's connected to the network also has what's called a MAC address. It stands for Media Access Controller. So it doesn't matter if it's a Wi-Fi network adapter, hard code, Ethernet plug-in, whatever the case may be, that unique number follows you everywhere. Forget about IP addresses, because IP addresses sometimes are dynamic. A lot of ADSL subscribers, like AT&T ADSL subscribers, Verizon, You log onto the internet at home and you get this IP address, but it's a pool of dynamic IPs, meaning the next day when you log on, it's a different IP address. Typically cable providers and fiber providers, it's, you know, it's a static IP address, but the MAC address never, ever changes. And it has to be sent in plain text for any communication that you make, because that's what tells the packets where to go on top of the TCP IP layer. So there's multiple aspects of this. Also, these smartphones are stupid. They are truly stupid. And I'll give you an example we've mentioned in the past. You don't need a jammer. Okay. So number one, jammers are highly illegal in America. The argument from, you know, the lawyer's side is basically, if you have a jammer in America and you jam people's cell phones and somebody can't call 911, you would be culpable if that person died or something bad happened as a result of it. But you can buy them for pennies on all kinds of Chinese websites, 300, 500, 600 bucks for a jammer. And you recognize them because they have a gazillion little antennas. They're wide, but they're very short, sort of thing. But when I say cell phones are stupid, if you live somewhere, for example, I see somebody in the chat, it's already gone, said something about they have no cell phone signal at home, so everything goes out over the internet. So there's a couple ways to do that, voice over IP, which I won't get into, but one of the ways to do that is all of the major carriers have these devices that are a bridge, and you plug them into your router, and on the other end, it's a wireless broadcast that your phone recognizes as a cell phone tower. It thinks that's the closest cell phone tower. So your phone connects to the bridge in turn is connected to the internet, and it shunts all of your normal cell phone traffic over your internet connection. Well, guess what? If you take one of those units and you put it anywhere near somebody's home and you turn it on, guess where their security system and their phones connect to? They connect to the bridge that you just put, you know, in close proximity to their home. But if it doesn't have an internet connection, nobody's calling 911. No, the alarm system can't call in and say, oh, somebody kicked the door in. Oh, there's a glass break sensor just went off or anything like that. And there's not a dang thing. Yep. There's not a dang thing you can do about it. There's criminal gangs in South and Central America who come here. They case rich people's homes, especially in California, with drones and drive-bys. And then when they do the thing, they set up these fake jammers. So whether the people are home or not, they know that the security system is going to try and do an ET and call home, but it can't because it's connected to this dummy bridge. It's a deal, trust me. So anyway, Randy, I'll give you a chance if you have anything that you want to add as far as the location data is concerned.
Well, I think you guys have really covered it, you know, and people just, what you really have to realize is, you know, and there's so much more, you know, what they can get. They're not buying and paying real money for all that data for no reason. We can't even sit here and tell you all the ways because we don't know them all ourselves, but trust me, there's a lot of information. It's why they were buying it, because at some point it's legal for the government to just buy it from the phone companies, right? Which is why they made other companies that buy the data and then sell it off as a third party, correct? That's how that all transpired to begin with. So just realize, you know, and you're right. If you're not doing anything illegal, it doesn't matter to you per se, but you don't know all the patterns and everything else that they're learning from that may use against you at some point, even when you haven't done anything wrong. So just keep that in mind.
And there's another aspect to it too. It's not about finding you now or in the future. It's also in the past. If I identify, you know, some guy and I say, okay, he's a terrorist, with all this banked data, I can get his phone and then go back in time and say, okay, where did he go? Who was there with him? You know, because people do stuff 6 weeks ago. You know, they may be doing something illegal today, but they weren't planning on it 6 months ago. So they were just running around with their normal life. And maybe in the meantime, they said, okay, I'm going to be a terrorist now. I'm going to start using OPSEC. But you weren't using OPSEC 6 months ago, and that data is still out there, and people buy it up, and they can just go back and say, okay, well, back in January, you met with this guy, and this guy. So, okay, let's look at them too.
And it's out there forever. I mean, it doesn't ever go away, correct?
No.
I mean, it's out there forever.
Correct.
Forever. Yeah. Telephone company, your cell company holds your call data on your mobile for 3 years. So
But
I
if
can go back
someone
for
buys
3
it-
years and see everything you've done.
But if someone buys it, they can keep it forever.
Yeah, yeah,
NSA has huge server farms that do
Full of
nothing
emails
but
and backup.
store petabytes of data,
Yep.
yottabytes of data.
For anybody who wants to look into that, Sun Microsystems, we were the largest supplier of that technology to the NSA
you-
back in the day. Just look up Project Echelon.
Yeah.
And that'll open your eyes to where all of this really started. It's Big Brother on steroids. So the next article we have up is a great example of ISIS getting creative in how they recruit people, how they communicate, so on and so forth. We know that they use Signal a lot. Now, one of the problems with Signal, it's the problem with all of these apps, is what Jeff actually just said. So they know one guy, this one person is a terrorist, and they can't read the messages because of the encryption, but they know where that guy is at any particular point in time or going back in time. And then they connect to the other end. Who was on the other end of that Signal chat? They can't read the stuff in the middle because it's encrypted. But now all of a sudden, the one guy that's guaranteed, they know 100% he's a terrorist, they now have all of the endpoints that he connected with, which means they're probably terrorists as well. You know, it's not like he's communicating with family members or anything like that. So while Signal has not been cracked per all the stuff we've already covered, it can locate you. So when I say ISIS getting original, they've been using dating apps, multiple dating apps, but Muslim dating apps in particular. And BuzzFeed did a story on this not too long ago. And a woman in Jordan was lured to Syria by a user on this Islamic dating site. And what it really was somebody else who essentially wanted to kill her and wanted to get her into Syria to do her in. So at the end of the day, a lot of recruiting happens in things like games. The live chat in games is very popular for recruiting. Now we've got dating sites as well. Of course, chat rooms have been around since before the World Wide Web. Chat rooms go back into the 70s and 80s, for crying out loud. We didn't get the World Wide Web till 1994 until Tim Berners-Lee introduced Netscape Navigator, but there was still an internet before then. It just wasn't all graphical like the World Wide Web sort of thing. So using all these different, endpoints, Khalid, explain the challenge that this now creates for people like you gathering intel, other agencies trying to track people. How do you monitor all this stuff? I mean, I don't think you can monitor it all.
You can't because you are now looking at it. We spend a lot of time here talking about what platform are they not on. I mean, they are on Grindr, they are on Tinder, they are on the gaming apps, they are on whatever you can think of they're using. And the problem with these guys is that they create secluded groups. So it's one person, two person, three person. They bring them in and they have conversations with them. And they all have different code words. This is back in the old days. Let's go backwards. Back in 2005, 2006, 2007, penetrating a terrorist group and getting into their networks was very easy to do. I mean, the sheer amount of data I've downloaded from ISIS and from Al-Qaeda in Telegram groups and in Facebook pages is just unbelievable. But what they did is they said, okay, wait, Facebook is watching us. We'll tame this down a little bit. Now let's switch over and let's pick up Rocket Chat. Let's pick up Element. Let's pick up PUBG. Let's pick up dating apps. Let's move some of the really destructive stuff out to the dark web. And the way they're recruiting you, and we've got guys in our team that we've done this with, they are specifically responsible for joining these groups. On Facebook alone, there are over 1,200 groups just for terrorists. Zuck knows about them. He's not shutting them down. On X, and we've pointed this out to Elon numerous times, not just us, but other intelligence operatives have pointed this out to Elon, that you've got terrorists sitting in X spaces and planning out attacks. And they are controlled, they are invite only. and they are able to do whatever they want. And the problem for us as an intelligence agency is, how many different platforms do we watch? How many different levels do we go to? We remember the old days, and we love the old days when it was paper. That the courier would bring a piece of paper, and you would just follow the courier, and he would hand a piece of paper off, and you'd grab the guy there. Now you have developed such systems that trying to track you, we have to figure out. We did a raid once during an intelligence op. We found 3 video games. Someone had left a phone behind because they'd left so quickly. We found 3 video games on that phone. When we started monitoring those phones, you would go crazy trying to figure out, okay, how are they communicating? If I didn't have this phone in my hand, there's no way I could have gotten into that group. There's no way I could have gotten into that group. And the problem that we've got now, and this isn't just for Command 11. The CIA has the same problem. MI6 has the same problem. DGSD has the same problem. You have diversified to such a level that trying to track you online is impossible. It is literally impossible when someone walks up and says, here's the link. Here's how you join.
Well, let me throw another fly into the ointment that backs up what Khalid's saying right now. So again, if you're communicating with somebody, your cell phone to their cell phone, it's going over the network, and they can identify the endpoints, but they can't identify the endpoint if the person on the other end is using a VPN, pushing it through proxies, Tor nodes. I don't know that I trust all those technologies, including VPNs. That there have been leaks in VPNs and Tor onions and proxies over the years. But here's what these bad guys do, and I can tell you, I've done a lot of work on this in the past and access systems quite easily that nobody knew were being accessed by my team. Not at Survival Dispatch, this is in a former life. But basically, if you do a phishing attack or you socially engineer somebody and you have a Trojan horse essentially installed on their computer that doesn't disrupt their computer, doesn't disrupt their phone, their tablet, whatever, they don't even know it's there. What happens is the guy on the other end who's trying to recruit people, the ISIS recruiter, is not only connected through a VPN and bouncing it off of proxies and whatnot. The fact is that by the time it gets into that app and they try to trace it back to the origin, they can't find the origin. So they might see that the person was trying to recruit them from ISIS, but they can't find the endpoint because of that. And they're smart. There's a bunch of videos out there. If you're really, really interested in this stuff, there are a ton of videos on X of terrorists discussing this on X. And what hoops they now jump through to disguise what the endpoint really is. So it's a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole. I'm going to go to the next one, then come to you, Randy. So here's another one, Muzz Match. So this is a dating site, and this is a dating site that both Hamas and ISIS have used in the past to communicate with each other or recruit people to their cause. And this one in particular, if you do the research on it, was going on for years before anybody clued into it, that they were essentially piggybacking comms on top of their stuff. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that or not, Randy. If not, I'll move to the next one.
Well, I was going to say that, it's smart of them to do that. It's, hopping around to different apps like he was saying a while ago. Well, just hopping around. Why would you do that? It's kind of what encryption does anyway, right? Kind of the same thing. So it just makes perfect sense to me that they would do that. And, I would assume that they're probably using other different platforms, probably every single one that they probably can. And, it makes it harder, as Khalid and you already talking about, it makes it harder to track them all and where everybody is and finding that endpoint. So I don't know, it's one of those things I'm sure somebody much smarter than myself in IT has an answer for, but we haven't seen it yet. So
white hats by nature are reactive. The black hats are the ones who always drive whatever the next thing is, right?
Yeah.
But let me give you another example of trying to track people. So, and again, I'm a textbook libertarian, lowercase L. I don't want anything to do with these wars in foreign lands. I don't care for Israel, Hamas, or anybody over there, to be quite frank. So Israel, part of their intel gathering on Hamas is that they would take down the cellular networks in Gaza and put up drones that showed up on the network as if it was the cell phone towers. So they would catch people again if it's encrypted. Well, it's encrypted, but it doesn't mean you can't locate their location if they're not using a VPN. But a VPN won't help you that first hop as far as location's concerned. It will pass that, but if they know that this is your phone and you're connected to this tower 100 yards away, they got you. They've totally identified you. And if they are able to trace the endpoint on the other end and that person's a terrorist, then they got both of you. This stuff, you know what it reminds me of, Jeff? It reminds me of Mad Magazine, Spy versus Spy.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's literally what this, is akin to, right? So I want to move on to the next one here. This is a good X post here. So this is an interview with a Palestinian from their hacker force. It's 3 minutes and 3 minutes, 14 seconds long. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing, but I'm going to let him speak for himself. So you don't have to believe us when we tell you that these groups are sophisticated. If you don't want to believe us, that's fine. If you want to do your own research, I would encourage that. But here it is directly from the horse's mouth.
Intelligence units all over the world spend lots of money on online stores where people download applications for their phones. They do this to track people. We also know that the Israeli Mossad spends money on applications like Viber, Skype, and WhatsApp. We are aware of these methods, so we don't use them at all, while other nations use these applications. During the last war, how did Israel know about the locations of our hidden underground rockets? They knew about them through Facebook and Twitter. Some young people used to post things like, "A rocket was launched near my house." A while later, the Israeli Air Force would hit the location of that place where rockets were launched. We asked these young people not to be free agents or spies of the occupation. It's not intentional, of course, but they send free information to Israel.
Another electronic tool used by the occupation to track Palestinians and kill them is the drones that hover in the sky day and night. They are used to watch what happens on the ground or to directly target civilians and kill them with rockets.
كنت أجري بحث على الشبكات اللاسلكية في قطاع غزة.
I was conducting a study on the network.
I was conducting a study on the networks in the Gaza Strip. It was confirmed that there are some wireless networks run by drones that work when the power is off. However, the surprising part was that the drones run wireless networks for free, using names of local internet companies in the Strip. I noticed they get information by using a particular protocol when the power is off.
في سحب بيانات المواطنين في ظل انقطاع التيار الكهربائي. المقاومة الفلسطينية حقيقة حرصت.
The Palestinian resistance made sure it dealt with drones or planes without pilots, especially since they all depend on spying. The resistance misleads these drones, and it didn't stop there. This is what we actually witnessed. I think there were many attempts by all resistance factions to control drones and bring them down. As the resistance was creative in establishing hacking cells, they will seek to do this. This is a technical side the Palestinian resistance has the right to achieve.
It's easy.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. And Khalid, just because this is in your backyard, I'll go to you first, and then Jeff and Randy.
You have to understand, again, we're talking about fighting the bad guys. This has been used for decades, not just in Israel. If you remember recently the Iran war, Iran told all of the Iranians to uninstall WhatsApp. That was broadcast across Iranian television. Uninstall WhatsApp because you're giving up your locations. Well, something that we do here in Pakistan, and this is something we are always telling the people in Pakistan, is when the military is moving, there is no need for you to post a picture or a video on social media. because that's a violation of operation security. You're telling the enemy exactly where you are, because geolocating something is very easy. Put the picture up, look at look at where it is, identify the location, you know where that vehicle's moving from. The problem is, and again, this comes back to good guy, bad guy. The bad guy says, okay, I need to protect these things. The good guy goes, well, look, there's a missile just got launched from near my house. They're not saying it from the point of view of they're being deceptive to the cause. But that little piece of information gives you up. I remember, I think it was CBS News. CBS News said that they were reporting locations where Saddam's missiles were being fired. And they were saying, this is where they hit, this is where they hit. And Saddam was changing location, the targeting based on the reporting that was going on. It's just that simple. But we've gotten so used to technology being part of our lives that we don't understand how to live without it. Like coming up 2 days from now is Independence Day in Pakistan. I will bet you tomorrow, when there's the full dress rehearsal for the Pakistan military for the Independence Day March, you are going to have Indian handles posting videos saying, look, Pakistan's getting ready to invade India. When it's actually, you know, just a dress rehearsal for a parade. It's all part of that psychological warfare. Using drones, shutting down networks, being able to track somebody based on their phone location, being able to get inside somebody's head that you are not safe no matter what you are doing because you're a bad guy. If you were a good guy, it wouldn't matter. But as a bad guy, you're in trouble.
So let me just throw something out there and I'll have you comment on it first, Jeff. So there's such a thing as a reverse honeypot. It's essentially a deception operation. So a honeypot is something fake, some site that's you know, created online that draws in things like pedophiles, for example. And they go to this, they're drawn to this honeypot. They have communications back and forth. We've all seen the TV shows, how they think they're going to meet, you know, a 12-year-old boy and it's the authorities and they end up arresting them. Well, the terrorists, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, they've all done this. When they know that they're being surveilled, they will set up phones and connect them to these networks, knowing full well that everything's being monitored. And number one, the location service now says that the terrorist is somewhere that they're not, because they just leave the phone there doing its thing. And the next part to it is that screws up all the subsequent data collection we've talked about, identifying, well, somebody here and somebody there talked, high likelihood of them being a terrorist. Meanwhile, it's basically like, hey, watch what's going on over here, because I'm going to go over here and do something else that you guys aren't going to know about. So I figured that was a perfect segue into you, Jeff, just to talk about the art of deception.
Well, yeah, I mean, the simplest one is if you get, you know, you've used your burner a few times, you think they may be onto it. Don't throw it away. Turn it on, leave it on, charge it up, turn it on, and then put it in the back of a truck that's going, you know, 1,000 miles away.
Yep.
Because according to the network, you're going 1,000 miles away. You're not. Right. Or you know, what we used to do, I knew some guys in the agency, they would, you know, they knew that whoever, the Russians, whoever was on their cell phones, they'd hand it to their teenager. And they go, good luck following this one. You know, they're all over town and they're going to parties and football games and everything else. Meanwhile, you're out running your SDR, going to go meet your asset. You know, that's been going on forever, even before cell phones. You know, it was, we had a thing called a jack in the box, and they would make a latex version of you in a torso, and it would fold up into a suitcase. And you would get in the car and your wife would be driving and you'd go around a corner and you'd roll out, and then she'd hit a button, this thing would pop up. And so when they see you going by, you know, you're still in the car, and there was even a little switch to make the head turn so it looked like it was still alive and it was talking to her and all that. So they go, well, yeah, he's still in the car. No, he's not. He rolled out, went around the corner, and he's on foot now. Yeah, that's old school. That's stuff from like the 60s. I mean, but it works. It's you know, there's nothing new under the sun. There's just a new application for old stuff.
There you go. Yeah, and it didn't take long for terrorists to turn around and apply this to smartphones and network devices and all that kind of stuff. So, Randy, I've got a question for you that's related to this, but coming at it from a different angle. Do you think that American citizens should be concerned that foreign governments, foreign intelligence services are using these types of technologies against us and compiling that information on us?
Well, we see with TikTok, right, that most people really aren't. Yes, absolutely, we should. There's many, many, many reasons why. You know what I mean? If there's a foreign government collecting intelligence on your civilians, it's generally not to help you out, correct? I mean, why would they be collecting intelligence otherwise? But it also, like we spoke about earlier, you know what I mean? It gives them a lot of different information. You know what I mean? You think about what through probably Zoom and TikTok and many other things that the Chinese have built for us, they probably use to collect a lot of intelligence. And in fact, you know, if we go back to any other time when, you know, let's say, what if they ever came here and actually invaded us or took over somehow? Let's just say hypothetically they were able to do that. You know, they're not going to have to go around and snatch up people to figure out who everybody else is. They're already going to know who everybody is and what key players to go find, who to kill, you know, who to put to work, and everything else in between. And people say the same thing all the time. Well, I'm not doing anything, so what do I care if the Chinese are collecting off of my phone? Well, that's pretty naive, you know, but it's also the cushion that America has provided us, the bubble, we'll say, that we've lived in for a long time. And what I want to stress here to folks is, because one thing that's just impressing me the most is I'm listening to all this about these apps and everything else, is just look how much the World Wide Web, for one, because that's really the glue, the thing that everything stuck to and is able to pass through. But all these apps and technology, how much it's easier it's made for these terrorists to elevate their play, so to speak, and make it harder for us to identify them, to stop them, and everything else. It's gave them a distinct advantage that any other time in history they wouldn't have.
I totally agree. So, Khalid, maybe you can confirm or not confirm this. So I read actually that when the warning came down that there were GWAT veterans at the officer level being targeted in Florida, that they had actually already started to tail some of their targets, and they actually used cell phone location data to hone in on where those people were. And for those people who aren't aware, you know, Randy was here at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa. I mean, it's everything, right? There's US CENTCOM, SOCOM, MARCENT, which is the Marines, SOCCENT, which is special ops. Like, everything is there. And what I read was basically that all of the vets that lived in close proximity to MacDill that were officers were being tracked through their cell phones, and that's where that threat came from. But I can't prove it. That's just what I read.
No, that threat was actually much bigger. It wasn't just around military bases. Somehow, and we've connected it to all of the property the Chinese companies have bought up, that they're using it for surveillance to get information. You left behind when the Biden screw up withdrawal of Afghanistan. You left behind biometric data. You left behind officer names. You left behind ranks. You left behind a lot of information in Afghanistan, and you gave them a treasure trove of information. So when they started to monitor, watch, understand what you were doing in the US, it was quite easy to figure out where you were. Once they figured out where you were, they started tracking. First, it was a person following. Once the person locked onto your digital signal, then you were being tracked by a digital signal. And that's made things very difficult for America. The SOCOM warning that came out was the first time the US military made it public that there is an actual threat to former GWAT, the GWAT vets, because this was going on for almost 6 months. And everyone was talking about it, but nobody was making it public because we could not make something public that related to GWAT vets without the permission of the U.S. military. That would bring hellfire down on us. So when SOCOM put it out and said duty to warn, we all went nuts on it. We jumped on it. We went nuts on it. We said, look, this has been going on. This is what they're doing. This is how they're doing it. If you remember, there were a couple assassinations of Afghanis who were part of helping out U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Those assassinations were done the same way. They tracked them. They found them. Once they found them, they killed them. And there are lists. GDI, the Taliban's intelligence, has pages of lists, soldiers, Afghanis that they want to kill off.
Yeah, let's just draw the point home for our audience. What Khalid is speaking to is we left behind information not just on our troops, but we left information, biometric information that could be used to identify Afghanis who worked with us against the Taliban. Yep. So they basically gave the Taliban a hit list and said, well, these are all the people who ratted on you, so go get them. Yep. You know, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's pretty
well. Another thing, Chris, that we left, you know, and it wasn't just Afghanistan, both in Iraq. And I, way back even when I was a private, you know, I knew that this was an exposure, and I wonder why we did it. Although I wanted to be able to call back home, right, too, just like anybody else. But certainly when I was on the conventional side of the house, it doesn't matter which command unit's there, as each switch in and out. You know what internet service there you have to go out and do? They have to go out in town and hire a local internet service to run all your internet. And every battalion, every unit had a big internet room for everybody to come in and get online, whether it was Facebook, you know. And in the beginning, you could not bring your own private cell phones. Now, I know some of your higher enlisted and some of your officers were able to do that, but generally it was against, you could not bring, like me as a private, I could not bring my phone, right? And even when I went back with group later, there were rules against that obviously lax there shortly thereafter, because the next thing you know, well, I'm at SOCOM, as we were talking about earlier, I'm there. Now all of a sudden everybody has their phones over there. There's all these pictures they're connecting. So every time you connected to that internet service, you're leaving information with them, and that was on local servers.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I just want to give H a shout out. Some great comments lately from H, but this is true. This is exactly how the NSA and CIA bypass constitutional protections of Americans. They outsource the illegal domestic spying to the Five Eyes allies, who then report back to them. And I'm sure Jeff can attest to that. Say again. Yeah. So we're coming up close on wrapping this thing up. We only got a couple more to share. This one briefly. So there's no need to play this video, by the way, but there's been a bunch of these terrorists essentially raising money on TikTok through this. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Like, I don't use TikTok. It's like it's a stream gift or something like that. Might be the right word. And every time they kick these guys off, another one pops up. And so they're recruiting donations and money from the kids that they've convinced, you know, that Hamas is this, you know, peaceful, you know, humanitarian organization, and everybody else, they got it so bass-backwards, it's not even funny, but they're preying on the youngins who believe in that, who are being indoctrinated to think Hamas is the good guys, and getting them to cough up money. So I'm going to go through a couple here really quickly. This is in the United Kingdom. Luton jihadist admits using Facebook and Telegram to disseminate Islamic State films. And then the next one, and pardon the French here, I didn't write this, but cousin fucker terror organizations and its activists are hero worship from top to bottom in communities throughout Great Britain. Young man has been jailed for sharing horrific beheading videos glorifying the so-called Islamic State terrorist group on an encrypted Telegram chat group. This guy was 18 when he began posting these videos featuring armed ISIS fighters and, you know, mass executions, et cetera, et cetera. The material was uncovered on his iPhone. This is where it starts to get crazy. He had over 4,000 videos, these videos of people being beheaded and tortured that he was distributing. And this is how they essentially indoctrinate and get people to join. Khalid, I'll start with you first again on this because it's in your wheelhouse, but my understanding is the process is that they start to share this information with somebody and essentially convince them that it's a holy crusade, that to save, Islam or spread Islam's, convert the world to worshipers of Allah, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera.
Right.
You describe the process of indoctrination, just
Okay,
so our
well,
audience has an idea.
The first step is finding disaffected youth that feel like they have no place in society, they have no objectives, they have no goals, they have no future. That's the number one target, because those people are so easily brainwashed and turned into suicide bombers, turned into shooters, turned into whatever you want to turn them into. So once you've identified the disaffected youth, you start communicating with them, talking to them about the religion. And one of the things you'll find out is most of the people that are radicalized online have no understanding of Islam at all. They are after the violence part of it. They are after the mentality that I can become something where people will remember me. They don't understand why Islam says this or why Islam means this or the basics of the religion. So what you're doing is you're finding someone who's disaffected, feels like he's got no place in the world, nowhere, no future of his own. You say, listen, let me give you a purpose. Let me give you a purpose. And you'll have martyrdom and you'll go to heaven straight. The big ticket is you go straight away to heaven. And you will be remembered forever. People will write songs about you. People will write poems about you. And you will be glorified by everyone in our groups. And all of a sudden, that guy who feels disenfranchised and doesn't feel like he knows what he's doing, he goes, wow, I have a place. I have a purpose. I have something I can do. Now, you'll find that when they were first starting this, they started out with 18 to 25-year-olds. Now they're starting out with 14 to 17-year-olds. And because the 14 to 17-year-old is not mentally ready for that conversation, it's very easy to loop them in. And when you look at Europe, and the reason I keep pointing back to Europe, when you look at Europe and you look at the number of people that were arrested on ISIS-related charges, age 14, age 15, age 16, age 17, age 18, age 19, these are young kids. And you've got to be wondering, why are your parents not paying attention to what you're doing? I mean, why are they not checking your phone? You are getting videos of people being beheaded and you're watching them. I have hundreds of them. If you want to see them, I'll send them to you, where people are taking a machete and cutting someone's head off. And these are being sent to 14, 15-year-old kids to indoctrinate them into this is what you can do. You want to feel like you have a place in the world? This is what you can do. So that's where the indoctrination process starts. Once you've been indoctrinated, then they flood you with books. They flood you with movies. They will teach you how to make a bomb. They will teach you how to carry out a lone wolf attack. They will teach you how to bring more people into your group. So you may be one to begin with, but you'll start telling your friends, dude, come join me. Dude, come join me. Dude, come join me. We can be this. We can do this. We can do. Forget the fact that it's a crime. Murder is a crime. Forget that fact. We can be something. We can achieve something. And that's the key they play on. And the problem is that when you have disenfranchised youth everywhere, it's very easy to recruit.
So I don't know what juvie looks like, overseas and stuff, but a scenario here, any of you guys can comment on it. I just don't know if it's in play with this stuff or not. But there was a gang in South Florida that was moving north up the peninsula, and they had gotten to our area and they were heading towards Jacksonville. Like takes a long time for them to build up these chapters or whatever. And their SOP is they would recruit kids who were 16 or 17 that had a driver's license. And then they would recruit kids that were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. And they would go into neighborhoods. The youngins would jump out of the car. The 16, 17-year-old would take off and would come back and pick them up at a set point and location 10, 15, 20 minutes later. Those kids would try, people's doors to their home, doors on their vehicles, and steal whatever they could easily and get away with. And the reason that this gang did that was because the 16 and 17-year-olds would say, I don't know, they said drop them off at their friends. I came back and picked them up. That had nothing to do with me. And then the young kids that are 12, 13, 14, our juvie is so overfilled and, not functional here in the state of Florida that half the time they wouldn't even have to appear in front of a judge. They wouldn't even get a scolding from a judge, let alone pay any consequences. So Jeff, I got to ask you that question. Is this stuff happening like on a bigger level with terrorists perhaps and bringing young people in?
Well, it's not just terrorists. I mean, you look at street gangs recruit the same way. They kind of take the place of the family or the father figure because, young kids, a lot of them are looking for structure in their life. They won't tell you that. They won't admit it to themselves, but they are. They're looking for that father. They're looking for that parent. They're looking for a family. And if you don't have one, you're very susceptible to someone who comes in and says, I'll be your family. The other thing you get is you get kids who've been bullied and feel completely powerless. Well, these guys come in and say, come with us. I'll give you power. You'll be feared. I'll give you an AK-47. No one will pick on you ever again. And that resonates with them. If you're the kid that got stuffed in the locker, you might be going, it doesn't sound too bad right now.
Right.
So, you got to be careful who you bully because they may come back to be your terrorist or your boss, one or the other. If he's a nerd, he turns out to run the company. But the point is, people who are either treated poorly or perceived themselves to be treated poorly are the ones that are just ripe for this. And you think about the number of kids in their teens who commit suicide. Here's someone saying, we got to commit suicide. Literally, go out with a bang. Be remembered.
So, Randy, I mean, what didn't apply to us when our kids were younger, but what are your thoughts on, the average parents who have kids that are young and have access to all this crap, smartphones, laptops, computers, tablets?
Well, I think everybody's starting to realize they really don't know what their kids are getting into. If you're not really paying attention, you're not going to. And this isn't new stuff. This isn't just jihadists. This isn't just Islam. Honestly, this is an intelligence tool, right? All they have done is learn that themselves. We've been doing this for decades, right? Jeff knows this, Khalid knows this, and I know this. It's what I've told you before. You know what I mean? Green Berets, that's what we do. There's a lot of intelligence gathering that they're Green Berets are in 60, 70 countries right now, this very second, and pretty much every day of life. They may change a little bit here and there and which ones, but that's what we're doing. And in fact, it's called manipulation, right? And they described it perfectly. This guy right here who says it doesn't have to be disenfranchised. Well, that's correct. They don't have to be. We're just saying those are the ones that are the easiest because it's the same. We're not the only, as I was saying, let's just take the example of the modern day liberal woman. Certainly the ones that they picked back in Al Gore's day, where now they've convinced them that global warming and global change is that mankind is running the planet. Those people to this day, you still can't convince that's not true. And look at what some of them have done, including the one that, I don't know, she was from another country. I don't remember her name, but remember she was like 13 years old and trying to scold us about the planet.
Right.
That is exactly what we're talking about. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. Look at her behaviors and what she's done since then. That's exactly what we're talking about. And she thinks that she is a part of something bigger in her, that she's going to save the planet. And they will do anything for you at that point.
Do you remember the look on her face, Randy, when Donald Trump walked by her because he was speaking at an event? And, nobody was talking to her. She's all by herself, just sitting there angry, crazy stuff.
Right.
So we're on to the very last topic. I'm going to blow through these three quickly and then get everybody's input. So first and foremost, when you open your cell phone, your smartphone, it gives you access to the files on the storage device, like the flash storage device, but it's encrypted. So if somebody has your phone and they can't open the phone, they can take an image of the phone, but they can't read what it is, including the FBI, which is why they beg phone manufacturers to give them access. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But as soon as the phone is open, you now have access to everything that's on the file system. And here's something that most people aren't aware of. because the keyboard on a smartphone is actually a software application, it logs every single thing that you type into it. So if they get a hold of your phone and they were able to open your phone with your fingerprint or your face or your passcode, they now have half of the conversations that you're having with other people. It's got no record of what the other party said, but it's got a record of every last thing you typed into that phone. So that in itself is a significant opportunity, to gather data from somebody if the phone can be unlocked. But moving on from there, there's two things here that are pretty crazy. So some people will be familiar with mesh networking, others not. So mesh networking is you have a bunch of devices that communicate using the same protocol. So LoRa is an example of comms that's used on, farms, large factories to communicate, stuff like that. We've done some work with LoRa. We've had some really cool devices sent to us in the past. But what this basically means, what you're looking at here is Jack Dorsey, the original founder of Twitter, has released this new open source program called BitChat, and it's Bluetooth based messaging. So it's direct peer-to-peer without going over the internet. It's not peer-to-peer like the old Napster was. This is physically peer-to-peer. So if you had, let's say, a dozen terrorists in a football stadium with 100,000 people in it, and they're communicating using this type of application, nobody is monitoring that. Nobody can see it. This is completely hidden to all the prying eyes from seeing what's going on. And it's also encrypted. So even if somebody did know that there was traffic traveling by Bluetooth, which typically you can get about 100 feet out of it if it's a decent transceiver, but this is fairly nascent stuff. And look who one of the first groups are to latch onto it. So they're called CDR apps, cognitive digital radio. It's essentially like a radio that's on your smartphone. Terrorists now have switched to CDR apps to communicate in Kashmir, and you don't need Wi-Fi. You don't need anything else whatsoever. It's its own signal through an ad hoc networking protocol. So LoRa would be ad hoc. Basically, if a whole bunch of people come into a certain proximity of each other, that's an ad hoc network. People, they leave, they're too far away, they're no longer part of the network, but it's essentially just a web of people being connected. And there's no way that any of our, security guys can do a dang thing about this. And when we get into, this series now, this is episode 5 of our series of 12 on the road to 9/11 2.0, that this is already being used by the terrorists. So just for argument's sake, let's say 24 terrorists, they're at the end of day 1 and they've taken over the level 1 trauma center. We're not getting any of their comms. They're communicating using ad hoc networking like that, where unless we're in the thick of things with them, we can't even, the signal's so low, you have to be in relatively close proximity. We don't even know the signal's going on, let alone what's being said. So Khalid, I'll go to you first, because surprisingly enough, you're about at the epicenter of this type of networking.
We are at the epicenter of this.
Yeah.
Because everything the terrorists are using outside of Afghanistan is being tested Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kashmir, because these are 3 hot zones. And it's the reason why I've always said that you cannot marginalize Afghanistan. The day you marginalize Afghanistan, you have crushed your intelligence presence. I've said this in a number of programs that I don't like the fact that the CIA is relying on the Taliban intelligence agency to confirm information, because they're not going to tell you this. They're not going to tell you that this is the kind of networks they're using, this is the kind of protocols they're using, these are the kind of systems. They're going to keep that very quiet. And when they need to, they're going to blow it up on you. But we need boots on the ground. I mean, it's not, you don't need soldiers. You need intelligence operatives. You need assets on the ground that are reporting this information back. We do a lot of it on Twitter, on X. We put a lot of information out, but even we hesitate on saying a lot of things because we are in a war zone. At the end of the day, we are sitting in the middle of a war zone, and we say something that shouldn't be said. And the next day there's a bullet sitting on my office door. And it's happened to us. It's not like it hasn't happened to us. It has happened to us in the past. But the problem we've got is that for some reason, since the Trump administration has come into power, they have become more tacitly approving of terror groups. You've got Jamadi in Syria. You've got Afghanistan with that's become terrorist central. Now you've got Lebanon that's about to explode. Iraq is about to explode because today there was a threat made to the Iraqi security forces to disarm all the Shia militia groups, which means you'll have another uprising in Iraq. You have the Houthis in Yemen. You have Libya, which still hasn't settled down. I mean, I said this in our signal chat. I said they've got the box corners done. Now all they need to do is wrap it in.
I want to make one point just so our audience understands, especially if you've missed some of these episodes, which, by the way, the 12 episodes in this series all stand on their own. You don't have to watch all 12. You don't have to watch them in order. They all just speak, I think of like a hub and spoke model. They all speak of different ways that the bad guys are using to get to 9/11 2.0. But here's the deal with Pakistan, and Jeff, Randy, and Khalid can all speak to this. This is ground zero for terrorists testing their SOPs. So in other words, they attack Pakistan in these small skirmishes to see what works and what doesn't work. Next targets are Europe. Next target's America. And, you know, because this has been going on for some time now in Afghanistan, since shithead Biden left all of our crap there, that was the beginning of them coming up with SOPs that use our technology to attack Pakistan first, Europe, America.
Well, I'll give one really quick example. If you remember, we talked about the TTP using drones. Those drones are now being used in Syria.
Color me shocked. Who would have ever thunk it? Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Khalid hit it on the head. I mean,
Okay.
it's their step one, and you're right. I think is where they're going to go test everything, because ISI is a fairly capable intelligence service. So if you can get by them, you can probably get by most of the European services. Because ISI doesn't have to play by the same rules that Europeans do. In fact, ISI has no rules.
Nope.
And if you can still get over on the ISI, you're going to do fine against the Germans or the French or the Italians.
So I want to give you first crack at the reader submitted story. So of course, Dale is this prolific guy who every morning and early, like 6 a.m. Eastern, floods our private signal chat with all kinds of news, and it's incredible. He's a true asset to our group. If you end up signing up for survivaldispatch.news, you get a free account, you get a bunch of stuff. But if you pay $7.99 a month or $75 a year, save 2.5 months, you get an invite to our private signal chat, which thank God most days it's not this bad, but some days there's 3,000 messages, and I get up and I look at it and go, mark all messages read. There's no way I could scroll back and read them all, but it's awesome information being shared by everybody amongst that. And the people who pay get other things. They get all 37 of our eMags that we sell for $10 a piece. You get enrolled in S10s, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. You also get all the sources for our SITREPs. So you know, everybody gets a SITREP, but below the SITREP are some sources for paying members. And like I say, it's a pretty good value add, but we give a lot away because we know some people just can't justify paying each month. So Randy, Dale's article, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but I'm dying to hear your thoughts on this. Headlines: Israel killed an innocent Al Jazeera journalist. And then this is a tweet from the Al Jazeera journalist way back on October the 7th, 2023, 10/7/2023, when Hamas was raping and murdering and torturing and killing people. This Al Jazeera journalist said 9 hours and the heroes are still roaming the country, killing and capturing. God, how great you are.
Well, so this is the guy that was killed?
The guy who was killed.
Yeah, well,
10/7.
So Israel killed him, right? I mean, well, they'd have to prove that first of all, but sounds like, you know what I think about journalists, even here in the United States, but then when I automatically see Al Jazeera, I'm like, oh my goodness. So, I won't say the guy deserved it, but maybe he did.
He wasn't a journalist.
Yeah,
Journalist
that's right.
was his cover.
That's right. That's
well,
right.
regardless of whether he deserved it or not, the problem I have with this is people choosing something that is they think is a great opportunity for them to push their agenda, their narrative, their cause, when in reality, this shitbag that they're trying to frame, pardon me, as an innocent journalist is a total scumbag. You know, he was
he's an
cheering
operative.
them on, you know?
Yeah, he's an operative, you know,
Yeah.
and even back on the last deal with that app, you know, what shows you, you know, I think I say when you talked about the terrorists were the first ones to use it, we have to ask ourselves, was that what it was designed for? Because as Jeff alluded to earlier, right, you couldn't bring certain, same thing with me, and certainly even at group for sure, but even at SOCOM, you had to leave your phones in a box. Why? Because they all had Bluetooth. And there's a reason why that was deemed not safe by the United States federal government for our agents and other folks. So now that they found a way to use that we can hardly track, you would think that some smart people had to figure that out, right, and make this app available for them. That was my thoughts on that. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that 100%. All right, so we're right at the end here. Here's our conflicted question. So you've ran out of food and your family is starving. The government will give you free food, but they require you to supply them with the names of 3 other survivalists in return. You know 3 others you could name, but you know that giving them the names will result in their homes being raided and all of their supplies being confiscated by the government. What would you do? Jeff, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
I'd give them the names of 3 dead guys and just say, these are the only ones I knew. I haven't seen them in a long time, but man, did they have a lot of stuff.
Leave it to the CIA guy. Oh my God, Randy.
well, I was going to see if you were going to let Khalid go first, because last time I was going to say, you know, these intelligence guys, they all operate the same.
All right, Khalid.
I'm just saying, you know, but to me, I'm a, you know, same thing. If I had 3 bad guys that I knew, but if this comes down to the same one, remember there was something about FEMA camp. You had to go sign, you could get your medical that you needed, but you were going to have to sign into some little FEMA camp. I ain't doing it. I'm not going to go take food from the government either, because one, how do you know they didn't poison it or something else already anyway? But you're just not going to trust them in this type of a situation unless, like I said, there were 3 bad guys you need to get rid of. Then by all means.
Well,
find the guy that owes you money.
That's right.
Yeah. Khalid can wrap this up, because all I'm going to do is quote my wife. If they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you.
Yeah.
You can think of that in many different
right.
contexts, but my wife says that all, like when somebody does something unethical and that person wants to do business with us, that's my wife's go-to every single time. If they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you.
Yep.
So you got and clean up.
I'm of the point of view of, if you start giving out names, you become a collaborator.
Yeah.
And you don't know how far that collaboration is going to go. Today you give up 3 names. Tomorrow they ask you for something else. The next day they ask you for something else, and all of a sudden you become part of the framework that may be oppressing people. So
you know too well.
Oh no! This has happened. No.
You know too well, don't you, Khalid?
I'm not getting into this. No way. Once you make that wrong step, it's over.
Right.
There's no out of it. There's no out.
Nah.
We haven't done an audience poll in quite a while. We should do more audience polls. So everybody who's still with us in the live chat, if you think Khalid sounds more like a white supremacist than Randy and Jeff and I do, put a 1 in the live chat. and if you think he doesn't sound like a white supremacist, put a 2 in the live chat. But I personally think he gets the award of the night. The white supremacist award of the night goes to Khalid Muhammad.
It's like if you're being blackmailed. It doesn't stop when you pay them the first time.
That's right.
No way. The fact that
you're willing to pay.
you gave in the first time means they can keep hitting you. They can keep hitting you. They can keep hitting you.
I don't think you've seen this, Khalid. So I watch all the stuff that's going on all 9 platforms. So this is what mission control looks like, right? So I've got 4 screens here. I've got 2 more over there. Did I press the wrong one? Hold on. 2 more over there. and then there's a third one in this corner here. So
Okay.
I've run 7 screens. I'm watching everything. So when I say you're racking up a whole bunch of ones in the live chat,
You're racking it all
you're
up.
wrapping up.
So I win the white supremacist award
That's right.
tonight.
You're on the list with us now.
You're an honorary
You're part of us.
Well, I mean, we usually don't enforce the dress code, but Wednesday night you have to wear a white pillowcase to the meeting. Yeah, when you come back on. Stay
Perfect.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate everybody out there, especially our paying guardians, our sponsors like Carnival to carnival.com, freeze-dried meat it's got technically they put 25-year shelf life. It's 40-year shelf life. They withdraw so much moisture from it. This is premium American meat, beef, chicken, and pork, grass-finished, not grass-fed, no mRNA, no antibiotics, like just no crap in it whatsoever. And Randy will tell you, we can't keep it around. Like you put it around Randy, me, or anybody else on the team, we just devour it. It's really,
it makes
really
it too
stuff.
easy to throw something together. It just does.
I
That's good.
I said to Dean, one of the guys who owns it, I said, man, I said, this is like your prepper stockpile food that's so good that you never get to stockpile it. It just gets eaten in the process. So anyway, John will be back tomorrow night. Topic to be determined tomorrow. I have a feeling it might have something to do with his weekend in Knoxville at the Gun Owners of America big meeting. And then the 4 of us will be back on Wednesday night with the next installment. And actually, I'm trying to remember what the next installment was on. We've got so much on the go. Next installment is, the Road to 9/11 2.0. They've already rehearsed. You just didn't see it. So these will be things that have occurred, especially people like Khalid have caught, that have already occurred. Everybody else isn't paying attention. And that means they're one step closer to that brutal day, which is approaching. So anyway, we got a new closing video for y'all tonight. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless America.
Mash that thumbs up before y'all leave.
This nation was built on law, order, and pride. Immigrants came through the front door with papers in hand and hearts full of hope. But that America was betrayed by Democrats. They didn't lose control of the border. They opened the floodgates on purpose. 20 million poured in. Cartels, rapists, traffickers, funded by you, enabled by them. This wasn't immigration, it was an invasion. By design. And we paid the price. In chaos, in crime, in blood, while traders in suits handed out benefits with our money. But now comes the reckoning. We're not deporting immigrants. We're deporting lawlessness and those who sold this country out. Law, order, sovereignty. Without them, we don't have a country. So now it's time for retribution, for justice. You don't get to destroy America and stay in it.